This is the story of how one engineering trick legally broke the 2026 Formula One season before it even started. Mercedes found a loophole worth roughly a few tenths of a second per lap. According to the FIA 2026 Power Unit regulations, the governing body of motorsport issued strict new engine rules for the 2026 racing calendar. Officials mandated that every manufacturer lower their internal combustion engine compression ratio from 18 down to 16. They designed this limitation to level the playing field across the entire grid. Ferrari followed the instructions precisely as written in the technical directives, and Audi built their new power unit to meet those specifications. Honda engineered their block to comply strictly with the mandated 16 limit. That collective obedience meant the top speeds should have equalized perfectly across all teams. The technical rulebook contained a blind spot regarding how inspectors actually measure that compression ratio. Originally, regulators only conducted these mandatory tests when the car sat totally still inside the garage. The engine remained cold during the initial mandatory inspection process, a flaw the FIA later fixed by mandating a hot test. Mercedes recognized this specific testing methodology and realized the rules never explicitly regulated live compression under heavy load. Their engineers went to work building a power unit that passes the static garage test. The factory manufactured a block that measures right at the legal 16 limit while parked on the scales. That initial compliance gave them the green light from inspectors, which meant they could roll the car out for track testing without raising alarms. The problem surfaced only when rival teams looked at the GPS telemetry data during early running sessions. They noticed the silver cars accelerating out of slow corners with an unusual amount of power. The speed trace showed an advantage of 0.8 seconds per lap, and that gap erased the competitive balance the regulators tried to enforce. It is surprising how an entire grid of what Forbes considers billionaire teams missed this detail. Subscribe to this channel to see how many sports scandals happen right in front of the regulators. The mechanical trick operates entirely on thermal expansion. When a driver pushes the car out onto the track, the internal temperatures rise well beyond normal operating windows. The connecting rods and pistons react to this heat by physically expanding. According to the 2026 F1 regulations and technical analysis, the metal expansion pushes the compression ratio back up toward the old limit of 18. This thermal manipulation generates extra horsepower precisely when the driver needs it most on long straights. The strategic part involves the paper trail left behind at the factory in Brackley. The team spent months consulting directly with the governing body during the early design phase. They sent continuous clarification requests to the technical department regarding specific measurement protocols. Those inquiries resulted in formal written approvals from the inspectors, meaning the officials accidentally legalized the design themselves. That paper trail fully protects the team from direct disqualification. Rival engineers discovered the effect later, realizing their own designs were underpowered by comparison. The paddock woke up to the reality that they had read the rules incorrectly. That realization triggered widespread concern inside the rival factories. By December of 2025, executives from Ferrari, Audi, and Honda drafted a joint letter of protest. They submitted this formal complaint directly to the governing body, demanding an immediate ban on thermal compression tricks. The alliance expected a swift technical directive closing the loophole before the season started. The regulators found themselves trapped by their own previous verbal acknowledgments. Banning the Mercedes design right before the season would trigger a large legal battle in civil court. Officials reviewed the rulebook again, and that forced them to admit the static testing procedure remained the only legal standard on paper. According to F1 paddock reports and early 2026 news, the result was a rejection of the joint protest. The governing body scheduled meetings with the Power Unit Advisor Committee for February 2026 to discuss future changes. That delay meant the thermal trick would remain legal for the opening months, with new testing criteria scheduled to close the loophole in June 2026. The protesting teams received nothing but empty promises for the following year, and their heavy investments in the 2026 regulations instantly evaporated. Because of this ruling, the Italian team faced a difficult timeline. Redesigning their engine architecture to mimic the thermal expansion trick would require at least 8 months of development. They would miss the entire first half of the racing calendar just testing the new block on the dyno. Veteran Italian motorsport journalist Leo Torini broke the news in February that Maranello executives accepted their fate. Management concluded that fighting a losing battle against the regulators wasted valuable resources. Therefore, the team ordered their engineering department to focus heavily on the 2026 power unit. They shifted 90% of their research budget directly toward the 2027 project instead. That decision effectively yielded the upcoming championship to their rivals before a single car lined up on the starting grid. A team with a budget capped around $135 million halted their current development because of one reading of the inspection manual. The entire grid prepared to watch a silver procession at the front of the pack, as the sport lost its most famous competitor to a technicality. The story contained one final complication hiding inside the Milton Keynes factory. Red Bull avoided the problem entirely because their management anticipated this specific scenario. Their new powertrains division quietly recruited a senior engineer away from the silver team 2 years prior. That individual carried direct knowledge of the thermal expansion loophole into his new office. Armed with this intelligence, the technical directors authorized a dual development program. They funded the construction of 2 entirely distinct power units. Engineers focused on developing a single engine block, utilizing these identical thermal tricks, rather than splitting resources to build 2 distinct power units. When the regulators rejected the December protest, Red Bull simply proceeded with their legally approved thermal engine for their chassis. That preparation forced rival teams like Ferrari to aggressively pursue alternative metallurgical technologies to remain competitive for race wins this year. Everyone else must spend the next 12 months developing upgrades to chase the leaders while waiting for the rulebook to change. The championship battle shrank from a multi-team contest down to an exclusive 2-horse race. This regulatory failure alters the commercial foundation of the sport over the next 2 years. Audi joined the series expecting a clean slate where every manufacturer started from zero. Instead, their board of directors watched their debut campaign start competitively, with cars fighting solidly in the midfield. Fans face a championship battle restricted exclusively to 2 teams, although global television ratings have remained strong in key markets. The governing body now faces a major credibility crisis heading into the new era. They wrote a set of technical regulations specifically designed to prevent expensive development wars, but their failure to define the testing parameters achieved the opposite result. The teams with the largest budgets found ways to exploit the gaps, which meant the smaller manufacturers suffered the heaviest penalties. Future regulations will likely require live load testing using track telemetry instead of static garage measurements. Regulators must install standard sensors on every engine block to monitor compression ratios at maximum operating temperatures. Until those new measurement tools arrive in 2027, the sport belongs to the engineers who read the rulebook backwards. The technical triumph proves that championships are rarely won on the asphalt, as they are secured inside quiet office buildings by people looking for the spaces between the words. The framework of motorsport regulation requires a complete overhaul to prevent this level of systemic manipulation. Whether this engineering trick reshapes the sport forever or gets banned next year, we are watching a major shift unfold right now. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the grid, like and subscribe for more.